This is for sale, 20 to 60 acres. I want you to look at this land and think, what do you see there? Most of us drive past this land and we see nothing but land. I'm going to tell you quickly what I see. I see freedom. A lot of people don't even know that slavery ended and the slaves were promised 40 acres and a mule. Why? What can you do with 40 acres? This is 20 to 60 acres. What could I do? I could plant food, I could build a house, and I have a mule to work it. What else would I need at that point? Nothing. Let's look across the street. What do they have? They have their land, and soon we're going to pass their house. They have their horses to work it. They're okay. But what happened with slaves? They got released. They didn't have their acres. They didn't have their mule. They didn't have their education. They needed to eat. They needed to sleep. So then they became slaves again. And generation after generation, they were stuck in that scenario. Very few realized how hard, how much sacrifice, how hard it would be and how much sacrifice would be needed in order for them to work out of not getting what they were promised. And that's a good lesson for life. It's unfortunate and it's wrong. It was nothing right about it. I don't know if reparations will ever come, if the people will ever be paid back. But understand that there was an enslavement even after the Emancipation Proclamation and the release of the slaves. And that enslavement continues today and in other ways, but the same principle. Just as a jailmate, a jail person who is in jail, incarcerated, is released, he or she, if they're not rehabilitated correctly, they're out into the world. They didn't get their 40 acres. They didn't get their mule, their education. They didn't get their rehabilitation. They didn't get the promise that if they pay their time for their crime, that they'll have a chance. No, what they got was thrown back into the world, just like the slaves were released and then told, make it. And a lot of them end up going right back because they weren't given the tools. A lot of the freed slaves were right back into slavery one way or another because they weren't given the tools. And that's just the reason why it took hundreds of years after being freed for black people to actually begin to get out of that. And in some ways, we are still enslaved today. I said hundreds, but I was wrong. It hasn't been hundreds, but it's been a long time, and we're still feeling it. So white people, black people, whoever you are, understand the principle of that story and that lesson and apply it to your life. You have a great day.